Hello, sisters. Welcome to the Sacred Medicine Podcast, weaving powerful, soulful practices into functional medicine. Step into this beautiful space of devotion and explore everything from nurturing foods, rituals, sexuality, and awakening your innate sensuality. It is time to own your radiance. This is the Sacred Medicine Podcast. Hello and welcome back to another week of the Sacred Medicine Podcast. I am your host, Margaret Romero, and this week I have Shann Vander Leek, and she is a transformation goddess, a best-selling author, producer, podcast coach, and voiceover talent. She is also the author of Life on Your Terms and co-author of 6 more best-selling books for women. She loves teaching women to walk in beauty with the strength, courage, and pleasure of reclaiming their feminine sovereignty. So I had Shann on the podcast because if you've been following me for a while, you know I just love empowering women. But not only that, I also love when women know how to step into their beautiful feminine space and from that create all their desires and just getting into their own bodies and their body's wisdom. So I invited Shann and we talk, her journey, especially from when she used to work in corporate and how she is now an entrepreneur and loves what she does. Also how to live in a more feminine way. And she gave such beautiful examples and actually some of her sacred practices on a daily basis that she also uses. But we also talk about what to do when you are just a busy woman and you don't have time, or you feel like maybe you don't have time to do all of these things or self-care. And she talks about, she listed quite a number of things that busy women like us can really do on maybe even on a daily basis. So hope you enjoy this conversation and learn how to step into your feminine just a little bit more, because let me tell you, it is one of our gifts and I love more and more women to embrace that side of us. So on to the show. We have Shann Vander Leek with us. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, Margaret. Thank you for the invitation. It's great to be with you.
You know, I was first drawn. So I'm so into, if the people that have been listening to me for a while, I love the word goddess, by the way. And I feel that all of us as women we all are goddesses. And I love your tagline on your website. It's called Transformation Goddess Experience, a soulful, sensual, and sacred exploration for women. And that really, really, truly resonates with me because it's really something that I have been in practice of in the past several years to really tap into my feminine and to my sensual. And it's something that I fully and deeply believe that all women need to really know how to hone in on those beautiful, delicious aspects of ourselves. And, you know, I have a medical practice in Manhattan, and the majority of the women that I see are very driven, very successful. And they come to me when they've got adrenal issues, thyroid problems, hormone imbalances, their hair is falling out. And I have to tell you that 9 out of 10 times, it is because that their drivenness has created, it just breaks down their body. And it creates this imbalance in everything. And so they come to me and for medical reasons. But what I can see is that they're so in their masculine, they're so driven. And that's great to be in that essence, to run your company, if you're the CEO of a company, or even if you're running your household, whatever it takes to get to where you want to be. But they don't know really how to shut it off and shut it down and tone it down at the end of the day, or when they come home or on a date or what have you. So It was one of the biggest reasons why I created this podcast as well, was to kind of help women to kind of find their way back home, find their feminine essence. And so when I came upon your website, I'm like, oh, she totally gets it. And I love her already. So
well, thank you for your kindness. And the story that you're telling, it sounds like you were, you're meeting with my prior self, many, many moons ago, when I didn't even realize how much I was in my masculine and how much that was affecting my health and happiness and all of that. I was so success driven and so caught up in the trappings of my life and the life that I'd created, which has been wonderful, that I had completely kicked my body to the curb, and there was just no room for my creativity and for that divine feminine essence that was just, almost like when you're watching a candle just about to go out. And thankfully that didn't happen. So,
Thank
but
goodness.
we often don't even know, Margaret. We don't, when you're in that space and you're suffering and you're to the point where they're coming to see you, or they don't have a clue generally.
You're right.
What it is that's happening. I remember I gave a speech. I was in Las Vegas and speaking in front of a huge group of business owners at the time. It was a group of franchisees, mostly women. And a part of my speech made them so angry. And it was the part where I was talking about nourishing themselves and finding spaciousness and making room for those beautiful, deep jacuzzi tubs that they have in their big houses that sit there unused or gathering. And oh yeah, and boy, did I hit a nerve, because
Wow.
I mean, I was hearing things like, I can't believe she told us all to take a bath, that's what it was reduced to, right? We don't need a bath. We don't have time for that, etc. And I can laugh about it now. At the time, I was a little bit horrified because it was such a small part of what I was saying, but it was still an important part of my message.
Right.
Because without the time to be still and to nurture ourselves and to be mindful of all of the great and crushing beauty around us and to breathe and to be and to flow, without all of that, we are so out of balance, and our bodies scream for us to do what needs to be done to come back to that place of that loyal dance between the male and the female.
So true. And so what happened to you? Did you have like a health issue?
A number of things happened. My daughter was born. So with her birth came my rebirth. And all of a sudden, the things that I thought were so incredibly important from a professional standpoint and from a business standpoint at that point, working for somebody else, were just no longer at the top of my priority list. And I would say that before she was born, or up until that point, I was starting to have, I knew something. I knew that it was time for a change, but yeah, things were showing up in my body like ridiculously horrible migraine headaches. And I was the kind of person that would push myself until I hit a wall. And there was nothing else for me to do other than stay down. And instead of nurturing and listening and saying, you know what, right now, you don't need to work X number of hours today, or let's go take a walk along Lake Michigan. Let's get some fresh air. Let's not be so worried about the bottom line. I was a sales director and responsible for millions of dollars of ad revenue. And I took it very seriously, very serious, until one day, I'd like to say I just was no longer interested in jumping through flaming circus hoops for money. And so things needed to change. So physically, mentally, spiritually, becoming a mother. It was also about the same time that I started practicing yoga. Getting back in my body again really made a difference.
Wow. And so how did you just quit your job, and sort of what was the flow of that transition?
Yeah, it took some time because I had been in the television advertising business for a long time and had a really sweet position with all of the trappings. And so the lifestyle that my husband and I created up until that point was something that we weren't ready to let go of. And we needed to plan and move move money around and figure out what things were going to look like because I wasn't in a position where I would fool myself to think that I could that I could replace my six-figure income in a short period of time as an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't come from a wealthy family, and have all kinds of coffers full of money to get me out of the gate.
Right.
Right. It's like so many of us don't. So I had to be really strategic about it. So I definitely worked in two worlds. I lived in two worlds for about 2 years, and then set my intention and moved on. And it was really cool because by the time that I made that choice, I could be I was much more comfortable with it. It wasn't as scary because it was one of the scariest decisions that I'd ever made. What
I
was I
bet.
doing? What was I doing giving all of this up? And now it'll be 12 years this November. And now I'm just like, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for having the courage to take the leap and create a life on your own terms.
Yes. Yes. So how do you think that women who may be listening now that who are very driven and they are working a ton every day and they don't really know how to relax? I mean, how do you guide them? What are some things that they can do?
Good question. Well, I think the first thing is to acknowledge that they're worn out or burnt out, or I don't know, I said burned out. And to once you acknowledge it, you can start to do something about it. It's the women who can't really acknowledge it that just keep going that I worry about the most. But once you've said, okay, something's got to give, then you can start creating some spaciousness in your calendar. You can start realizing that you don't have to live and die by your to-do list and your tasks and your bottom line, that the inbox is always going to be full, that there's always going to be something more to do, but that your life is so much more important in the bigger picture than whatever role you're playing right now. Because depending on, whether you have a family or your close friends or your children, whatever that looks like for you, even if you're a single person without a relationship right now, your life is so precious. And so I talk about creating little moments of oasis of space and time. For me, what I would do is on my lunch hour, I would make myself take one, first of all, instead of working through it. And because of where I lived, I was able to drive a short distance to Lake Michigan. And even if I just sat in my car and stared at the water for a half an hour, or go for a walk or whatever that might look like, or there was a park where I could walk around this really large, beautiful track that people would walk around. Just little things like that.
Right.
Making time to try a yoga class or to try a painting class or a photography class or something that is so different than what you're doing right now. Something that says, you know what? I've always wanted to do this. And I always tell myself that I don't have enough time. And now I'm going to carve out time. And you've heard so many women probably talk about this, how, like give your calendar, renovate it. Take a look at your calendar and start to create some space around what it is you're doing. Start to put yourself first, not at the back of the line, at the front of the line. Not just business, but personal.
So true.
So, yeah, it is. And that's the thing, make time for body work. Between body work and yoga, oh my goodness, that's such a beautiful way to get back in your body, to find your breath again, to learn how to breathe from your belly instead of this shallow breath and this, running around like everything's so friggin' serious.
It's so true. I currently work in an urgent care clinic on the side, and let me tell you, it's not only draining because there's a lot of people that come in, but we also don't really get official lunch breaks. And so it's kind of like a bite here, see a patient, come back, a couple of bites, write a note at the same time you're writing a note, and then next one. It's really just not the way I live my life. And I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to be able to do that for. So I need to definitely make some changes, but I absolutely see that it is impacting, because the hours are long, the 12-hour shifts, and
Sure.
but it's definitely impacting, when I normally would have time to go to the gym, I'm like absolutely pooped at the end of that day. And so things have fallen to the wayside, and there will be some changes coming up with things. So
Good for you.
Yeah, because I am someone that I recognize I have worked in the past 70-hour weeks, and I got very sick, and I will not put myself through that again and get myself run down. And I was very in masculine mode many, many, many years ago. I just don't do that. Like today was my day of podcasting. I went for a walk. I had some time for nature, which really grounds me, and it really keeps me kind of, I don't know, it feels so good for me to be in nature, and just doing even this a short walk or a little hike. It doesn't have to be half of a day. And
no, not at all. Not at all. Before we came together, I was just sitting outside in my yard. There's a particular corner. We had some sunshine today. It's been incredibly cold, unusually cold for this time of year. But today was a bit of a warmer day, and I had some time to just sit and let the sun, just sit in the sun and let the sun just drench me in warmth and lightness, and hearing the birds and just being out. I think I was probably only out there for 15 minutes. It made all the difference.
It does. It really doesn't take much to kind of, switch that. So tell us a little bit about, one of the things that you had love also talking about and empowering women around is their voice and speaking their truth. And this is something that for me, when I launched this podcast, was, wow, like I'm not a talker, really. I'm very quiet. I'm very reserved. I'm an introvert. And here I am coming out on this podcast, talking about things that people don't really know about me. And one of them was my spiritual side, and being a very strong academic background, a Columbia grad, just my credentials. People sort of just saw me as a medical professional, but the things that I love doing, and my sacred practices, I said, you know what, that's a part of me. And I brought that into the podcast too. And so that was a huge, sort of a pivotal moment in my life and in my career, because I started to say to myself, you know what, I want to bring some of these practices into my medical practice too. I mean, why segregate them? And so I've seen, since then, I've opened up and relaunched my medical practice, which now contains all of the sacred practices that I do, and hands-on work and some energy work too in there. So my voice has absolutely grown in ways that I've never known, and that ways that I've never been taught, even as a young girl. I was always told, don't make too much noise. No, don't get anybody upset. Just accept it and let it be. And now you cannot keep me from speaking up. It'll be, it's taken some time over the years, but now I'm very quick to speak up, and I love the power that's behind that as well.
Was there something that happened in your life to, a catalyst for you to start speaking up, or did it just come with age and with wisdom and life experience?
That's a good question. I would have to say there was nothing like, there was no experience. It started very small, like many years ago, and then it just started. And then once the podcast came to life, I just felt so free to just talk about anything. And
Yeah.
it really opened me up. And so I'm someone that, being in the medical profession, you have to be, you talk to your patients about very intimate things, especially because I work in women's health. And so I'm very open when I'm sitting one-on-one with someone. Absolutely. And they can speak to me about anything. There's absolutely no judgment. But now I, not only on that one-on-one sessions, but I can speak. Like, I feel like put me on a stage because I'll talk and let me get on my soapbox.
Good for you.
Which was
it sounds like you're feeling very fully expressed, which is what I love to hear. I love when the confidence comes through and expression comes through, and when we allow ourselves to release any blocks that we have around using our voice. It's incredible how many women grew up being told, to be quiet. Children are to be seen and not heard.
Yes.
To not upset anybody, like you said earlier. Or maybe it wasn't safe to speak up. Maybe you were in a household where things could go dark pretty quickly if you spoke up.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people who have had those kinds of experiences. Or if you're living with a parent who might have an addiction, the alcoholism or whatever it might be, that would cause an uncertainty for a young one and as to what might happen given the time of day or whatever, to not know if Dr. Jekyll or Mr. Hyde was going to show up in that moment. So there's just a number of stories around that where we think we're keeping ourselves safe by being quiet, and then it carries out over over our lifetime. It carries out into our relationships. It moves into our teenage years. It might follow us to college, where we just feel safer being quiet, or we don't want to upset anyone by speaking our truth. And they might leave us, or they might argue or fight. We don't want to fight. We want to keep the peace. It just goes on and on. And because we are such nurturers and such caregivers, naturally, we end up doing all of this, staying quiet and causing this block, really, without even realizing it, just because we're trying to stay safe. And then when you come to a place where you start to say, you know what, my voice is important, and I do want to be heard, and I'm not quite sure how to do that, but I've got something to say. And then you start to see a shift. And I've done work with women through, chakra clearing, their throat chakra. I'm sure you see a lot of women that have issues with their thyroid. You have, so you look at it from that perspective. You can do some emotional freedom technique or some tapping around clearing your voice. You can very boldly start speaking out loud, just for yourself. Nobody else even needs to hear it, to where you just speak up in your own space, or practice speaking when you're driving, or whatever it might be. Nothing's too little to just begin and to allow yourself you deserve to be able to speak your truth. And certainly I invite our listeners to do so with great care and respect and loving kindness. I don't mean like go crazy and tell everybody off or whatever.
Right.
But frankly, if there's somebody who does need to hear that they can no longer tread on you, then that's okay too. Boundaries are a big part of this voice reclamation for sure.
Yes.
And many of us don't have any boundaries. We let people push us around without even realizing that that's what we're doing.
So true. And I think that was one of the things that, along with growing up in a household where we were told, like, shh, don't say anything, I think there was also a boundary issue with a lot of things. And I never really learned how to have a boundary because I could never say no. I could never say, no, I don't want, whatever it was. I had a very strict father growing up, and you would never contradict or speak up with, against whatever he was saying or whatever he believed. You would just accept it and like head down, accept it. And then don't you dare cry or else,
right.
So,
right.
And it took a long time. I mean, oh my God, so long to just get back my voice. And sometimes even with boundary setting, sometimes because I feel, sometimes I feel bad or it's okay. And I have to really catch myself still, definitely still.
Yeah. And that's okay. It's a practice. It's a lifelong practice, this reclaiming our voices and being mindful and being heard. It's important that we're heard. Each and every one of us deserves to be heard, deserves to have her voice.
So
and we're living in a time when, thankfully, we will not be silenced any longer.
I know that is so, it's a beautiful, it's just something that needs to be honed. I feel there are women who are so strong and will speak up, and I can see there's still many women who won't and who sort of are secretly and quietly suffering, and they don't say anything. And it's sad to see, and I see myself in that as well,
Yeah. Well, and that's why conversations like this are so important. That's why the work that we do matters, because the more that we talk about it, the more somebody who might be ripe to share her voice says, okay, if Margaret can do it, if Shann can do it, I can do it too. And it doesn't mean that you need to start your own podcast or start your own business or, or write a book or it can be whatever it means for you.
Right.
I was leading a webinar a while back, and I just had each of the women claim their voices out loud. My name is Shann Vander Leek, and I reclaim my voice, and I will be heard. And had them repeat that and share that, and even invited them to make a video or an audio if they were uncomfortable doing video with that statement, reclaiming their voice. And it was so empowering, and it was really cool to see these women coming forward. And even the smallest actions can make a difference.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I also really love, you have on your website this beautiful, it's called the Transformation Goddess Manifesto. And it's a audio that's, I don't know, maybe 4 minutes, I think. And
I also have the downloadable poster that goes with it as well.
Oh, you're kidding. I didn't see that.
Yeah, that's if you go on the website to Love Offerings and you scroll down to the manifesto, the manifesto is there to be read, and then it's also available as a beautiful poster that my graphic designer put together.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
Yeah.
It was such a beautiful manifesto, and it made me feel so, I have to, that's something that I'm going to have to put on my phone somehow to listen to.
Yeah, sure.
On a hike or if I'm going through something that is powerful. Really.
Oh,
really
thank
is.
you. Thank you. Yeah, it's and certainly any of our listeners are welcome to go to transformationgoddess.com and go to the Love Offerings area and pick up anything you want. The manifesto is there. I'm not sure. I think that I send a link to the MP3, but I'd have to look on the I'd have to look in the back end to be sure. But there's definitely a poster, and that's how I feel. I feel that we are each born to be lovingly adored, and that we represent the divine feminine.
Mm. And so I'm curious, what do you have any daily practices?
I do. I have many to choose from. I am surrounded by so much. So many choices, which is my personality style needs to have lots of choices. So whether it's, I'll use this morning as an example. Usually I'll wake up and just let myself wake up naturally, which is so nice. And certainly if I have things to do, I'll get up and do them. But if I can just sort of languish for a while, generally I will just start with a gratitude prayer, give thanks for the day, give thanks for what is ahead, give thanks for all of, for my health and my family's health, and just a sweet start of giving thanks. I think that's really an important way to start the day. Every day there are candles burning in my home almost all the time. There's either incense or smudge or a diffuser going, depending on how I feel. And, right now I have lemon balm. I turned it off so we wouldn't hear it in the background, but I had some lemon balm that was in the diffuser. I always have fresh flowers in my house, no matter what. And I just realized that the tulips need to be replaced. Things like that. But you asked me about the practice. So the practice really is following my natural rhythms as much as possible, listening to my body as much as possible, so that in the morning, after I've given thanks and figured out, what feels good to me now? Do I want to have a cup of coffee? Do I want to have a cup of tea? Do I want to read? Do I want to listen to some music? Do I want to have breakfast with my husband, depending on his schedule? And then, and certainly there's getting my daughter off to school and in there after I'm up and about. And then when she's gone, that's the time when I either decide, okay, it's time in the winter to get on the treadmill or to do some yoga or to do something to move my body before I get started, because I tend to dive into my work very easily and stay there. And be the person that says, oh, wow, how did 3 hours just go by? So I know that before I get started, I need to take care of making a smoothie for breakfast or a hard-boiled egg or just something. This morning it was a hard-boiled egg and some almonds. That's just, I didn't really want anything else. And then get to work. So I like to have lots and lots of choices. Some mornings I do journaling. Morning pages. Ever since I read The Artist's Way years ago, morning pages became a part of my life. So really play around with what works for you. Journaling might be exactly what you need to just do some stream of consciousness. Whatever hits the page without judgment. Journal. If that doesn't feel right to you, listen to something inspirational. Find some music that lifts you up. Find something that makes you feel good. We want to feel light. We want to feel adored. We want to feel good. And we can do this by bringing all of these tools and resources to our fingertips. They're all right here.
I love that. And I can almost hear some women saying, I don't have time for any of that stuff.
Right.
In the morning, I have to get up and I have to make breakfast. I have to make lunches. I have to get the kids out, and then I have to go to work and I have to commute an hour, whatever, and catch the train. And so for those women,
I have a lot. I have a lot to share about that, but I'll let you go first.
No, that was it. I was definitely that woman that was like on the go, go. I'm going to work every shift. I'm going to have 3 jobs. I'm going to work 7 days a week.
Yeah. And for what?
I don't even know why I was doing that. That was insane. But my body didn't like it. I'll tell you that much.
Right. And the thing is when our body's trying to get our attention, it's going to continue until we pay attention. And so if you're listening and you think this is crazy, this woman, obviously her life looks different than mine. I don't have time for that. Well, that's just simply not true. You make time for it. And so whether that means getting up even 15 minutes early, to give yourself 15 minutes, to make the lunches the night before, to pre-prepare whatever it is that you might need for the morning, to ask for support from your partner or from your kids, depending on their ages. Oftentimes we like to do it all ourselves. you know?
Yeah.
And with that comes sometimes a bit of martyrdom, depending on how you were raised and what you witnessed and those kinds of things. And to be able to let your family know, for instance, that there's some very special time that you need that's just for yourself. That is what my daughter has seen from the time she was a little girl. She knows if I'm going to go off and camp for a weekend, go to a women's circle, go to a sweat lodge, go for a walk, just go out with a girlfriend to a show, all of those kinds of things, to carve out those pieces. So for instance, let's say we only have 15 minutes. Then for 15 minutes, listen to some incredibly beautiful music or read something uplifting or journal. You can do all of those in 15 minutes. You can even do an abbreviated yoga practice, even if it's 4 postures with some deep breathing. You can sit in meditation. You could sit and listen to a guided meditation if you're one of those people that says, I can't meditate. My brain, I hear that all the time too. That's what's the beauty of guided relaxation, so that you can let somebody else lead for a while and relax and sink in.
So true. And even like during your commute, you can, let's say your commute is 30 minutes or 60 minutes.
Yeah.
Maybe taking 15 minutes and listening to that guided meditation while you're sitting there.
Sure.
Let's say you're on a train or something like that, or you're on a subway, to be able to at least just do that, or or listen to something inspirational, or listen to something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Listen to a podcast, listen to an audiobook, listen to whatever it is that's speaking to you. That's a treat. Treat yourself during that time. You don't have to work during that time. You're already probably working too much.
Yes.
And and I get to say that I'm a recovering workaholic for sure, and a recovering perfectionist on top of it. So I get it. I really do. And it takes practice. All of it.
It does. It really does.
And you're worth it.
Mm-hmm. So I love a lot, all of these tips. They're doable. They're short. You don't really need a lot of time. If you can get more time, if you can get even a Saturday afternoon to like do something with your girlfriends, or go and catch up on something. If you've got a Saturday, or, I don't have children, but aren't there like play dates or something like that, where you can sort of drop your kid off at a play date and then kind of have like an hour or two to do your own thing?
Yeah, if you want it bad enough, you absolutely can.
Yeah. And
when we were raising, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
When we were raising our daughter, she's a teenager now. But when she was younger, my parents live about 2 hours away, and they made themselves available at least once a month, or at least once every 6 weeks, for her from the time she was really, really little until she was a teenager. So my husband and I had that time, which was such a gift for us, and a gift for her, to get to know her grandparents and to have that space and her own friends there. And, there's just things that you work it out. You work it out, and you put yourself at the front of the line. You deserve to put yourself there. This time goes by so quickly.
It does. It really does. And so what other things do you feel that women really need to sort of grasp the concept of, in order to be able to really have this, feminine approach to living, rather than 100% 24/7 masculine, which a lot of us tend to fall into?
Well, I think it's important to just recognize that all of this doing that you're doing, that's fantastic. Good for you. Good on you. All of the great work that you're doing in the world. But also, you can do even more by allowing yourself some space for creativity, some space for beauty, for being still, for being in nature. All of those things help you feel better in your body and in your mind and in your soul. And if you really want to, you can awaken your inner goddess, and you can be open to receiving more grace and more connection and more abundance. And by remembering that you are enough, and that you matter, that you are loved, and that you're exactly where you need to be in this moment.
That's so beautiful. And so what is your definition of a goddess?
That's a good question. The first word that comes to mind is sovereignty, is freedom, is a woman who knows who she is comfortable in her own body, is comfortable standing in her truth, who supports and lifts up other women, who is deeply connected to the earth, as well as she is to her family and friends and herself. She knows herself. I could go on and
on. Yes. And I think that there are times when we, a lot of these things that you're talking about, how you support and uplift other women, which is one of the biggest things about my podcast as well, is just really to empower women on many different levels. And when I see that disconnection in women, when there's cattiness and things like that, I mean, how do you, because I see that in the workplace a lot. And, when I work in clinics or hospitals, I can see that among women sometimes. And is there a way that I can make a change with that? I mean, aside from me not being that way,
right.
How do you sort of change that paradigm?
Well, it begins with each individual person for sure. And if you're a person who's not participating in that kind of business, then you've already risen above it. And if it's happening around you, you have a couple of choices. You can ignore it, or you can be very direct with the people who are creating the issues and dot them in the eye and let them know that's not acceptable, or, find out what their issue is. And again, that's coming from a woman I'm extraordinarily direct. So if I see something going on, I'm not going to just let it happen. It's going to be like, what's going on? Do we need to talk about this? What's the issue here? Because the story I'm creating in my head is X, Y, and Z. I remember when I got my first job out of college, there was a woman in the office, and she was just horrible. She was horrible to me. So mean, so catty. And, I'm right out of school, so I'm already feeling a little bit insecure and clueless in this world. And my father gave me this wonderful piece of advice, because I didn't know how to deal with her. And he said, so are you in a situation, because we sat and I looked right at each other, desk to desk. There weren't any cubicles at the time. And he said, is there any way you can turn around? Turn your desk around. Turn your chair around, your desk around, your phone around, turn around. And there happened to be a way for me to do that. And I did. And so that I just didn't have to be in her line of sight all the time. And that helped. And then eventually I found the courage to just deal with her directly. I still don't remember how. It was a long time ago. But it worked. And then she was off, terrorizing somebody else.
Oh, boy.
And that, it's just unfortunate. It comes from a place of insecurity. It comes from a place of fear. And so you rise above it the best way you can. And also, I think, and this is something that I taught my daughter and that I remind myself, is that we don't know what's going on with these folks in their homes, in their relationships, in their minds. We don't know. And so they might be dealing with things that we can't even fathom. And then it's coming out in their behavior in such a way that is uncomfortable and so on. So I don't know. Did that answer your question?
It did.
Cool.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it looks like we are, my gosh, already approaching sort of the end of this call.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you want to add that we didn't really touch upon that you feel is really important for women listening?
I just think that it's important. Here's what I'd like to say to each and every woman who's listening in. You deserve to allow more of your feminine experience to be informed by your spirituality, your femininity, your creativity, your unique worldview, and your true goddess nature. All of that is so important. Please don't stuff that down. Don't keep that hidden.
Oh, thank you so much. And how?
It's my pleasure. It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
And tell us again how people can find you.
Well, you can find me just about anywhere online, but transformationgoddess.com is a good place, or shannvanderleek.com is also. But if you want, the love offerings that I have a beautiful album of guided relaxations that I voiced and that my good friend put orchestrated music to. That's available. The manifesto that we talked about is available. And then I also created a special report if you're navigating through transition, as so many of the women listening probably are. So all of those are available under the Love Offerings tab at transformationgoddess.com.
Oh, great. I'm going to check out the Written Manifesto. Absolutely.
Yes, please do. Yes.
Because the one that you have online, I absolutely love. And I'm going to somehow record that on my phone so then I get to have that with me whenever I feel like I need it.
Well, after we talk, I can download the MP3 and get it to you. So that there you have it. There you are.
Oh, thank you so much. Well, Shann, you know what? Let me just ask you some really 3 quick questions.
Okay.
I would love to know what is at your bedside right now.
What is at my bedside right now?
Yeah.
I have a Himalayan salt lamp.
Okay. Ooh,
I
like that.
I have a amethyst, a gorgeous giant amethyst candle holder, because I mentioned earlier, I like to burn candles all the time. And I have a brand new book, The Red Sparrow, I think that's what it's called, a movie that's out right now or coming out that I just started reading. So I can't really tell you what it's all about yet.
Okay. Yeah. I was curious to see if you did some crystal work or at least.
Yes. And
you do. And I was curious about because usually that's where we typically put it.
I also have in front of me on my desk, I have citrine, I have amethyst, I have angelite, and I have a beautiful piece of, I think, stone or lava from Costa Rica, from the Arenal volcano.
Yeah.
And then as well as a giant Petoskey stone, which is a stone that is found in Michigan that is incredibly beautiful coral from millions and millions of years ago that here it is, and people hunt for them all the time, and my husband finds them by the bucketful. So
oh my goodness.
Yeah. Okay, so question number 2.
What do you wear to bed? Kind of a random question.
Usually just a t-shirt.
Okay. And what is one of your most guilty pleasures, like something that you don't mind spending a lot of money on?
Body work.
Okay. I love
Without question. Yeah, there is actually, I can't remember the last time I went a month without making sure that I had either shiatsu or hot stone massage or, something that is so incredibly important. Or if it's not that, a facial. Those kinds of services have saved my life for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's super important. And I actually have, I go weekly to this little massage place near me.
Right on. Weekly. Yeah. That's excellent. I love it.
I feel like I need it after working a
You
12-hour.
deserve it.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
I
Heck
do.
yeah.
My body is used to it. It's like if we go one day over, my body's like, hello, we're
Yeah.
due. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's really important. So,
Yeah. So I don't know that so much as a guilty pleasure, but for many people who only get them when they go on vacation once a year, right?
right.
It's it's definitely do it more, get more body work. If you do nothing different, get more body work.
Absolutely. Oh, well, Shann, it's been so great to connect with you. Just kindred spirit. I love the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for being able to, really help women tap into that beautiful divine feminine and finding their voice. Such a beautiful thing. And for creating that manifesto, everyone out there, you guys need to listen to this. It's really a beautiful, beautiful way to be and to think. So you have to listen to it.
Oh, thank you, Margaret.
Well, thanks so much and have a beautiful day. Well, I hope you love this conversation and find that you can actually implement some of these tips. There's some of them are very, very easy, and some of them take as little as 15 minutes. So find it in your day somehow to squeeze in some feminine time and some self-care time. And I definitely do on a daily basis. This is a sort of a lifestyle for me now. And, being an entrepreneur and sort of being in my masculine, the majority of the day, I really need at the end of the day or even before a date to just really sink into my feminine. So hope you enjoyed this conversation. To learn more about her and for all the show notes, head on over to margaretromero.com, episode 75. I will speak to you all next week. Catch me over on Instagram if you haven't yet. And I'm at Margaret Romero. And I would also love if you could leave a review on iTunes. Much love, big hugs, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye for now.